Okay, everybody, I'm so excited. Today's day 5, our final day of this summer refresh retreat. We've spent 4 days together already, covering things like clearing out space, letting go of things that are no longer serving you, filling up your energy. And then yesterday on day 4, we talked all about really tapping into your intuition, intention, getting to that visionary leadership self that you are so you can truly make a splash in everything that you do. And so today I want to wrap it all up and really focus on what I'm calling now the 7 S's. I started with 3, I got to 5, and then I was writing my notes out for you. I had 2 more additions. So we're going to talk about the 7 S's that I think you want to take forward and keep in mind as you're moving ahead into the next season. So what I'd highly recommend you do actually is pull out a piece of paper or journal like we've been doing all week and take notes of what comes up for you as we're talking through this assessment. So really what I'm looking at in this piece now is we've gotten that visionary energy going yesterday, and now I want to give you a bit of a quick management consultant kind of self-assessment process that you can go through. And this is the Sarah version. It's something that I've kind of evolved and grown over the years. Trained as a management consultant in my MBA as a specialist in that area a few years ago now. And so this is kind of building on what we've been doing already, which is more kind of that coaching aspect and bringing more of the management consulting aspect. I've actually even thrown a blazer on today to kind of shift the energy up a little bit. And thought it'd be kind of fun to share this with you. And so you can look at these approaches with both lenses that we've been looking at all week, the professional and the personal. I'm mainly going to be talking about the professional here because that's where I really love to work once we get that personal kind of up and running through that thriving kind of approach to things that we've been talking about all week. So let's just jump right in. So the first S I want to share with you all today is all around using your strengths. And with my one-to-one coaching clients and my consulting work, I bring actually my clients through a Clifton Strengths assessment because I find it so helpful for them to really understand what makes them different than other people. And so I found it's really interesting actually that even though I've worked with a variety of different leaders, all high achievers in different organizations and nonprofit and government and business, whether they're founders and entrepreneurs in for-profit organizations, a wide variety. And what's been really neat is each one of their strengths profiles is completely different than the other. For me, I tend to have strengths in the strategic leadership kind of aspects of things, planning, organizing, all of that. And some of the clients that I've worked with have been more introverted and more of an analytical approach to things. Others were more relationship focused. And so it's interesting to see how each person's profile really is going to show up differently in how they show up as a leader every day. And so becoming more self-aware around that is huge. So what I'll do is I'll actually link the Clifton Strengths assessment below, and you can check it out yourself. Do it with yourself, do it with your team. Knowing what the strengths are of your team and sharing your strengths with your team as well is huge because they're going to be able to understand you better, serve you better, and you can serve them better as well. So that's number 1. And then how can you really use those strengths, as you're moving forward with your team, with your leadership in how you show up every day. Number 2S is going to be your schedule and routine. So we touched a little bit on, looking at your mindset, your morning and evening routines a little bit. We talked about this past week. We also talked about adding some self-care in so that you're filling up your gas tank. I also encourage you to regularly look at those tolerating things you need to let go of and delegate so that you are dealing with any of those kind of holes that are draining your energy. So we talked about that already. And then I also encourage you to look at your schedule and your routines in your work life and how that's working with meetings, how you're planning your day and your week, your months, your quarters, your year, how you are looking at financials, whether you're having reports on stats for your own production or your team's production, any of that kind of structural stuff. How are you managing your performance assessments every year? All of those types of routines and schedules, if you can actually lay them out If you can actually start to see a tempo to your week, a tempo to your month and your year, it actually takes away that surprise and you're not kind of in that overwhelm, right? You know it's coming, and it's also going to help you with that strategic kind of big picture perspective. And I fully believe that any empowered leader who wants to empower themselves and their teams needs to do this. If you're not doing this, you are failing as a leader, if I can be honest. And so it's really important to take the time to investigate and assess your routines and your schedules to see whether it's actually meeting your needs. Maybe you're attending meetings that aren't actually providing value to you, or maybe your staff are doing tasks that are no longer providing value, and they're actually just taking up more effort than they're providing input. One example would be minutes. Are they putting too much detail in minutes, so it's actually a waste of time of theirs and for those that have to read it after? Maybe you can do a condensed version, for example. So that's just one example. And then what needs to be updated? What needs to be changed? How can you improve those there? So that's number 2, the schedule and routines. Number 3 is around systems and processes. So you can see sort of schedule and routines, system and processes are a little bit different. I would see sort of the routines as how you put your time and your schedule together compared to number 3, which is the systems and processes. And I'd see that more as maybe there's an approval process, or, a document goes through your organization and then has to be approved at a final end, or maybe it is customer service support, or whatever it is that the role is that your tasks of your team do. I would actually identify what those are and point out if there are any that have a lot of friction in them. And then you can start looking at process improvement there. Without doing a quick assessment or analysis, or even just kind of like a quick touch point, maybe you can start talking to your team and say, hey, out of all the things we do, what's the thing that's causing you the most frustration? What's the thing that is taking way more time than it should? Those types of questions are huge, because then you can start to empower yourself and your team to really start pulling these things apart and really improving them. So that's number 3, systems and processes. I'd love to do a whole process improvement series with you that I may do in the future. I love that stuff, and it makes such a difference. If we can improve one thing, the ripple effect on how you can then take that extra energy and time and put it towards something more valuable is just amazing. And imagine if you do this regularly. I actually, and previously when I had my teams directly working with me, I'd look at a process maybe every quarter, maybe every 6 months, depending on how our tempo was, and say, okay, well, what process do we want to focus on improving now? And really having your process improvement be part of your routine. That is a secret to ongoing excellence. So highly recommend taking time to do that. So number 4 would be the stakeholders. So who are the people that are important to what you do? This is especially important when you are working in a bigger team, right? You're working with your colleagues, you're working with other sections. It's so oftenly shared that people complain about there being silos and that, one team doesn't play nice with the other team. So being aware of how those dynamics are, and maybe if there's issues between one or the other, you're maybe playing a tug of war between each other's teams instead of actually working together towards the outcome. So looking at what's going on there is really important. And also look at who might be a barrier, might be an assistant. It might be just more of an information type of aspect on your kind of stakeholder matrix. So doing a quick assessment or a more in-depth one can be huge and can help you from avoiding including people that maybe should be included, or making sure that the relationships are focused on the areas that are most important. So that'd be number 4, the stakeholders and relationships there. That could be formal, it could be informal. If this is a community thing, it could still be stakeholders. It's just doesn't matter really the term, but that's the idea. Who's involved? That's important, that you need to be aware of to manage the relationships, manage communication, and all of that. Number 6 now is going to be around the strategies. So what strategies do you use within your work? What is your big picture vision for your company, your organization? Not just you as a leader, as a visionary, right, within the teams and things, but what is the bigger picture? I work for the federal government, so I actually look at what is it? so public service commission at the top, and then the department, and then, our subsection within the department. I look at all of those strategies regularly to make sure that I'm aware of the bigger picture here beyond where I'm at within my organization. And then on the flip side, in my director role, I actually give direction on strategic approaches so that the CEO can then develop the strategies for the company. So it really is important to be aware of the bigger picture trends, the environmental sort of scenarios around things within your industry, really looking at what's changing, where might you have the kind of those risks and the threats, the SWOT analysis, if you've never heard of that before, that strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Looking at all of those things is really important. Looking at what strategy you want to have. Do you want to have quality over perhaps price? Maybe you want to be a low price bidder and not really worry so much about quality. It depends on what your strategy is going to be. Knowing what that is by connecting it to that bigger vision of your own as a leader, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a director, whether you are a manager within your company, understanding that strategic landscape is key to be able to make sure that you are moving in the right direction, that you're not actually going off over here when, the rest of the team is trying to go this way. So it's huge. Highly recommend taking time to check in with that regularly, at least once a year, if not more. So I think I skipped number 5. So number 5, let's do that one next, is really making sure you have the right support. So whether you have a coach or a mentor, you've got an accountability buddy, you've got like a work buddy that you can kind of share work-related challenges with and get support with. Do you have the right staff in your personal life to help you with personal items, as well as the right staff on your professional teams as well? Maybe you need a different function now because things are more virtual and you need more support in the online space than you needed before. And maybe you don't have that capacity in your team just yet. So you need to actually expand there, for example. Whatever it's going to be, do you have the right people? And then looking also at do you have the right education? Do you need to have training for your teams, for example, to make sure that they are empowered and they're working at their best level? Maybe you are looking at getting higher education beyond what you already have. Whatever that's going to be, looking at to see what kind of support can you get to continue to grow and develop in your professional life as a leader, and even in your personal growth as well. Then number 7, I guess we're at the end already. Number 7 is my secret. So I'm going to call that the secret, the final S. And that's really about looking at your energy and mindset along with all of this other stuff, that I believe fully that leads to a well-rounded, successful approach. You can push hard and go through willpower and effort to go through things, or you can do what we've done this week and really focus on managing your energy, being aware of your goals, your visions for things, and letting that come from an inspired place of overflow instead of forcing when you're on overwhelm and burnout and kind of that anxiety energy, but instead come from a place of possibility, coming from a place of excitement, of openness of how you can move forward and support the work that you do in a really enjoyable and fulfilling way. I fully believe that leaders have the ability to create the future, and we can do it in a way that is sustainable, holistic, and really takes care of ourselves and our teams as humans, or we can do it at the expense of ourselves, our personal life, our well-being, our mental health, our physical health, all of that stuff. And I don't believe that that's the way to go. I fully am, an advocate for really having a healthy workplace and doing it in a way that is sustainable and actually evoking human mastery in ourselves and our team, so that it starts with ourselves first. So I've really enjoyed sharing all of this with you. To look at this from a personal side as well, is I would encourage you looking at these areas, but personally. So what are your strengths personally? How are your personal schedules and routines going? What systems and processes are going well in your personal life and what aren't? I've spent the last couple of years really focusing on leveling my home routine management stuff and having setting up new routines and habits there. And now it's made it so much better, and it's just naturally these natural routines happen. So how is your personal piece going with routines and your systems and your processes? Who are the stakeholders within your personal life that are important? For me, like I mentioned earlier this week, family and my loved ones and my good friends, my clients, all of these people are really important to me, and having quality relationships and quality connection is really important. So making sure that you're prioritizing those in the way that is going to be aligned for you. And then look at what strategies are you using for your personal life as well. Maybe you have sort of your own personal mission statement as a human being in your personal life compared to what your work and professional statement mission might be. Also, what sort of supports do you have personally? And again, that energy mindset and leading towards your overall success is really important. And when we bring all of these pieces together, it can make a really beautiful scenario, especially the more time that you focus on these things. When you think about ongoing excellence, if you're continuously showing up in your thriving energy, if you're continuously improving things, addressing issues that aren't working within your work, addressing things that could be improved and tweaked in your personal life, this gets to a point where you get to what I call the sweet spot, where you have kind of done a lot of that heavy lifting. You've done a lot of your personal and professional development. You are now able to empower your teams to be amazing and empowered and thriving and bringing their genius to work every day. And then the team can work like a symphony, playing this beautiful music together, where you don't have to handhold them all the time. Maybe you do with a new process or routine or new staff, but you're empowering your teams to work independently, to really step up and take on more and bring their own genius and their own ingenuity into the workplace. This is what I think a thriving team and a thriving organization can look like. And can you just imagine, not only Gallup says that a thriving organization has 4 times more revenue, but can you imagine, I'm sure there's probably 40 times more impact when you have an organization that is working so harmoniously like that. So this is the mission that I have as a coach in my own personal life, in my volunteer work as a director, but also as a coach, is to help organizations achieve this sweet spot themselves. And so I actually use this approach in my 6-month sweet spot coaching program, where we dive into all of these areas we've just talked about today and really looking at them. And so what I do is actually do a bit of a management consulting assessment. So we'd actually look at all of the kind of the formal areas of like the management consulting of business and organizations, things like human resources, finance, IT, operations, sales, marketing, all of those kinds of things. But what I also doing in this program is also looking at the personal side as well. How's your health, wealth, your relationships, your happiness, your spirituality, all of those types of personal things. And so I really wanted to kind of bring this all to you. And I know this topic today could be its own sort of retreat or its own event, another challenge. And maybe I'll do that one day where we'll break it all down and spend more time on each one. But I wanted to provide it to you almost like a bit of a self-assessment, to say, as you're listening to all of this today and, thinking about your own scenario, your own organization, your own leadership impact, your own personal situation, and saying, okay, well, what comes up as we're talking about this? Maybe there's that one thing that you already listed on your, your tolerating list earlier this week. And, you're thinking, well, let's actually focus on this as a priority this fall, for example. You really want to dive into it with your teams or your own personal life and really kind of up level that and kind of rejig the process if you need to, or reassess how you're connecting with your stakeholders, or actually do a stakeholder assessment, any of that kind of stuff. So I wanted to actually offer it to you almost like an invitation to dive deeper, an invitation to go further with this content. So I feel like we went through some really fun stuff this week, and this is now an offer to you to take it further. And I'd love to support you if you want to have my support in your process here of going through this journey more deeply. That's why I've actually created the 6-month program, is because it's not something that could be done quickly. It does take time to do this assessment, does take time to review and upgrade processes. And so 6-month window is a nice amount of time. So I'd recommend that you look at that as well. If you're looking at any of these areas, and give yourself 90 days or up to 6 months to really take it on and integrate those changes that you see that could really be valuable there. So I just want to say, as we're finishing up, thank you so much for enjoying this retreat journey with me. I've had a super fun time sharing it with all of you. It's really fun to be able to go through this myself, but to also go through it together. I mean, we may not all be in the same room at the same time, but we're all kind of sharing this journey together. And I've had some great feedback already, people cheering us on, saying this is great stuff. There is really helping them go through their own retreat process as they're preparing for the back to school season. And so I really just want to say thank you if you've been connected through the whole stuff till now. Congratulations, first of all, because not many people make it through any type of content, program, course, whatever it is, to the end. And so if you have, I first of all want to say congratulations to you for being committed, for being dedicated and focused on taking your life and your leadership to the next level. And really just want to say congratulations to you. I really would love to hear about the transformations that you experience from this whole retreat process. And I'd love to connect with you further. So stay tuned. Next month, for the month of September, I have a few things planned. I'm thinking of talking about my empowered leader process and my regular kind of planning routines, because I think that that's a really good habit to set in stone nicely for the September season. So stay tuned for that. I'll send you more information. If you're on my email list, you can find out about it that way. If you're not on my email list, there's a link below. You can check that out and join my newsletter that way. There's my Inside Out scheduling guide. And when you sign up for that, that's free. And then you'll be on my newsletter from there. So thank you all for tuning in. This has been super fun. I wish you a wonderful rest of the summer. If you're watching this other than the summertime, I wish you all the best, whatever time it is that you're watching this. And just want to say thanks again for tuning in. This has been super fun. And I look forward to hearing your comments and feedback on this whole event. And we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye.